What if one book could change the way you see the world? Welcome to BookLeesh, where every page hides a secret and every story speaks to your soul. If you love stories that stir your heart, challenge your thoughts, or simply make you feel seen, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into a book that doesn't just tell a tale, it leaves a mark. So settle in, because what you're about to hear might just stay with you long after the last word. There's a kind of silence in some homes that feels like a scream muffled under layers of routine. In one such house, a woman moves through her day like a ghost of herself, mother, wife, cook, cleaner, caretaker, yet nowhere in those roles is she seen for who she is. Her spirit flickers like the lamp in her kitchen, often forgotten until it burns out. She smiles at her children as they eat, speaks softly to her husband who rarely looks up from his phone, and dutifully folds the same clothes she's folded for the past 10 years. Everything is as it has always been, except for the growing void inside her. Her hands tremble one evening as she prepares dinner, not from fatigue, but from something darker, something whispering to her that none of this will ever change. The quiet has turned into something sharper, more dangerous. She moves slowly to the stove, pours oil into the pan, and lingers for just a moment too long. The thought forms fully for the first time. Maybe if she vanished, someone would notice the weight she's carried all these years. But a sudden knock on the door breaks her trance. Her child's voice pulls her back. She blinks, startled, as if waking from a bad dream. The room returns to normal. Yet something is different. That moment, raw and terrifying, becomes a turning point. She doesn't share it. Not with her husband. Not even with herself. But it becomes the secret that fuels her determination to live, not just survive. Because if her children could unknowingly save her with their laughter, maybe they could help her remember who she used to be. Now moving to the next story, Black Cobras. Ashraf walks alone through the narrow alleys of her town, her hijab clinging to her forehead under the scorching sun. Her eyes are tired, not from the journey, but from years of asking for help and being met with the same dismissive eyes. Her husband vanished months ago, no explanation, no money, just gone. She's left with 2 hungry children and a crumbling dignity. Everyone she turns to offers only silence or scriptures. They say she must have done something wrong. Her prayers must be weak. Her devotion lacking. They say God helps those who help themselves, but never how a woman with no job, no money, and no voice is supposed to help herself. She arrives at the madrasa, where a religious leader known as the wise man listens to her plight with a tilted head and a patronizing smile. He offers food coupons, a second-hand burqa, and advice to be patient. Nothing more. She clenches her fists, swallowing the scream that builds in her throat. She doesn't need more fabric to cover her pain. She needs a roof, food, safety. Still, she takes the coupons, not out of gratitude but necessity. On her way back, she passes a group of boys calling themselves the Black Cobras, a local youth gang. One of them used to be her student. They nod at her respectfully, a gesture far more genuine than the false sympathy she just received. It's not a solution, not even a plan. But she begins to wonder if the system that ignored her can also be bypassed. If no one will offer her a seat at the table, maybe it's time she builds her own, one piece of scrap wood at a time. Next is Red Lungi. The temple courtyard is buzzing with anxious parents and confused children, all waiting for their sons to be part of the village's grandest tradition, mass circumcision. Boys, aged 5 to 10, sit in rows wearing identical white vests and red lungis, long cloths tied around their waists. The sight is meant to unify them. But underneath, everyone knows the truth. This isn't about faith. It's about status. One mother, Perveen, clutches her son's hand tightly. Her husband borrowed money from a local trader just to buy a slightly shinier red lungi. Because if your child looks poor at this event, whispers will follow him for life. She watches as the richer boys are treated gently, quickly led to the best doctors. But her son waits and waits until a nurse with smudged glasses finally calls his name. She bites her lip. There's no pain worse for a mother than watching her child suffer to uphold a tradition she herself doesn't believe in. But to refuse would make her an outcast. She looks around and sees other mothers like her, eyes darting, faces rigid. Then something unexpected happens. A child faints, not from pain, but fear. Suddenly, another parent raises their voice. then another. The staff scrambles. Parveen feels a shift in the air, not rebellion, but hesitation. She grabs her son's hand, steps forward, and walks out. Not a word is said, but others follow. It doesn't stop the tradition. Not yet. But in that moment, she realizes power doesn't always come from speaking loudly. Sometimes it comes from being the first to walk away. She's been called many things which, rebel, cursed, but none of them sting as much as what her own mother once said, "You'll never be a good woman." Razia never really knew what a good woman meant. One who smiles through insults? One who stays quiet when she's bruised? If that's goodness, she wants no part of it. She reads books behind closed doors. She talks back when men interrupt her. In a neighborhood where obedience is mistaken for virtue, Razia becomes dangerous simply by existing. Her father stops speaking to her after she questions why only her brother is allowed to go to college. Her mother cries in the kitchen, saying Razia will die alone. The neighbors whisper that she's unfit for marriage. But Razia doesn't care about marriage. She wants justice. She wants choice. At the local library, she meets a group of women activists. They invite her to a protest about school funding for girls. It's the first time she hears applause instead of scolding. It lights a fire in her chest. But when she returns home, she finds her bags packed. Her father throws a photo frame at her feet, and her brother slams the door in her face. She's left with nothing but the clothes on her back. And still, she walks away with her chin high. Not because she's fearless, but because she's done hiding her courage. For every door closed, she will build a window. One they can't shutter with shame. No one ever visits the widow on the corner anymore. Her courtyard is overgrown, her home silent. Once, Shabana was the queen of the street, hosting weddings, breaking up fights, making the best biryani in 3 districts. Then her husband died, and the silence moved in like a tenant that would never leave. The community says she went mad, that she talks to herself, that she cries into her plants. What they don't say is how quickly people vanish when a woman has no man standing next to her. One evening, a little girl sneaks into Shabana's yard chasing a cat. The widow startles at first, but then smiles. They sit on the steps. The girl speaks, Shabana listens. Something ancient stirs inside her. That night, for the first time in years, she makes tea for 2. The next day, the girl brings her friends, then their parents. Slowly, cautiously, the house begins to breathe again. Not everyone is kind. Some whisper, others glare. One man throws a rock at her window. But the laughter of children is louder than gossip. And Shabana, once forgotten, is remembered not as a madwoman, but a matriarch. Maybe grief never leaves, but neither does the will to live. There is a market where truth is sold in whispers and women are priced like cattle. Afri knows this market too well. She used to walk through it with her mother, eyes down, heart racing. Now she walks it alone, selling bangles. Not because she wants to, but because the house won't feed itself. One day, a man offers to buy all her bangles. She smiles, thinking it's a blessing. But he doesn't want the bangles. He wants her. His smile turns into something that curdles her blood. She refuses, politely at first, then firmly. He walks away, laughing. That night, her stall is burned. She rebuilds it with borrowed money and bruised fingers. But she keeps selling. She keeps showing up. Every day is a battle between her dignity and her survival. She walks a tightrope with no safety net. Then, another woman sets up a stall beside hers. A third joins them a week later. Together, they share stories, protect one another, and create an unspoken shield of sisterhood. The men still leer, but not as boldly. The market hasn't changed, but Afreen has. Sometimes strength isn't about fighting. Sometimes it's about staying and daring others to try and move you. He sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the azan float through the window. It reminded him of when he used to pray, years ago, before everything turned sour. Before prison. Before disgrace. Now he was home, but the walls felt tighter than any jail cell. His wife wouldn't look him in the eye. His son didn't even call him Abu. He wanted to start over. He brought sweets, gifts, even said sorry. But what does an apology weigh when trust has drowned? His daughter, barely 6, was the only one who sat beside him. She asked if he was still a bad man. He didn't know how to answer. He found work at a mechanic's garage, fixing other men's engines, while his own family remained broken. Every evening, he returned home to silence. Meals were left out for him like a stray dog. One day, his wife stood in the doorway. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply watched as he took his shoes off. Then, slowly, she handed him a glass of water. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. A beginning, maybe. He drank it like it was mercy itself. She sang in the mornings, her voice clear as a temple bell. Neighbors paused to listen, even when they pretended not to care. Miriam was born with music in her blood, a gift too wild for the quiet village she lived in. Her father warned her, "Don't invite shame." But songs came to her like breath. She sang while folding clothes, washing dishes, feeding birds. She sang for joy, for grief, for nothing at all. Then came the letter from a music college in the city. A scholarship, a dream with her name on it. But when she told her family, her mother wept, and her father tore the letter in two. He said, "No daughter of mine will stand on a stage for strangers to stare at." She wanted to scream that it wasn't about being seen, it was about being heard. She stopped singing. Days passed like dust storms. Something inside her curled into silence. Until one night, she crept out with a bag, a wallet, and nothing else. She didn't run away from her family, she ran toward herself. Years later, her voice echoed through concert halls. And even though her name was never mentioned back home, a small transistor in her father's house played her songs every morning. She was the quietest voice in a house full of noise. Miriam's opinions were overlooked, her ideas dismissed. "You're too young," they said. "Wait your turn." But Miriam didn't wait. She started a small garden on the rooftop, planted seeds in broken pots, watered them with hope. The plants grew slowly, stubborn against the city's dust and heat. Neighbors noticed the green patch. Children came to watch the tiny sprouts. An old man brought fertilizer. A teacher asked if she could take cuttings for the school garden. Miriam's garden became a symbol of patience, of resilience, of life pushing through cracks. One day, her father saw the flowers blooming and smiled. "Maybe you do have a voice after all," he said. Miriam didn't answer. She just kept watering. He was a tailor known for his precision, sewing clothes that fit like second skin. Yet his own life was a patchwork of regrets. Years ago, he had lost his wife to illness and drifted from his son, who had moved to the city, angry and distant. One day, the son came back, holding a letter from his mother's old friend. It spoke of forgiveness and a chance to heal. The tailor's hands trembled as he read. He wanted to say sorry, but the words caught in his throat. Days passed in silence until one evening, the son found his father working late, stitching a jacket. Without looking up, the tailor said, "This is for you." The son held the jacket, feeling the warmth stitched into every seam. The tailor finally spoke. "I was a poor father, but I want to be better." Tears blurred the son's eyes. The past didn't disappear, but the jacket was a start, a thread binding two broken hearts. She walked barefoot to the river every morning, carrying a pot to fetch water. Her name was Najma, and life had been unkind, with debts stacking like stones on her shoulders. One day, she found a stray puppy near the bank, shivering and alone. She took it home, naming it Lucky despite their circumstances. The puppy gave her a reason to smile, to fight. But the landlord's threats grew louder. Najma had to pay rent or leave. The community watched silently, some too afraid to help. Then, children from the neighborhood banded together, collecting small coins and bringing food. Najma's spirit lifted, not alone anymore. Lucky wagged his tail, sensing hope. Najma knew the fight was far from over, but with new friends beside her, she believed in brighter days. He was a school janitor, often overlooked but never forgotten by the children whose lives he quietly touched. Every morning, he left a little note on the classroom doors, words of encouragement, jokes, and riddles. One day, the principal found the notes and asked who was behind them. The janitor smiled shyly. The children confessed the notes made them look forward to school, helped with worries, and sparked laughter. But when budget cuts threatened to fire the janitor, the students staged a small protest, holding signs, chanting his name. The principal couldn't ignore the voices. He kept his job, not because he was janitor, but because he was a guardian of their hearts. She was known as the village healer, old, wise, and mysterious. People came from miles away for her remedies, but she carried a secret pain. Years ago, she lost her only daughter to a sudden illness, and since then, her hands trembled whenever she tried to make medicine. One day, a young mother brought her sick child. The healer's fear rose. What if she failed again? The child's cries echoed her own heartbreak. But as she prepared the herbs, something inside her shifted. She focused, steadying her hands with every breath. The child recovered. Word spread, and the healer felt the first flicker of hope in years. Her grief hadn't vanished, but her courage to try again became a light for everyone. The town's old clock tower had stopped ticking years ago. Some said it was cursed, others forgot it ever worked. A boy named Arif loved the tower. Every day, he climbed its steps, dreaming of fixing it. But no one believed he could. Arif studied books on clocks, asked questions, and worked tirelessly. Finally, on a chilly morning, the clock chimed after decades of silence. The town gathered, amazed. Arif's dream had turned silence into song. Sometimes, all it takes is one heart to start the ticking again. The last story belonged to a woman named Fatima, who lived with a past shadowed by betrayal and loss. Her trust was broken, her spirit dimmed. But when a stray cat appeared at her doorstep, she hesitated, then let it in. Caring for the cat gave her something to nurture, to love without fear. Slowly, Fatima's walls crumbled. She started volunteering at a shelter, helping others heal. Her past never disappeared, but her future sparkled with new light. She learned that even the deepest wounds can be healed, one small act of kindness at a time. These stories in Heartlamp are not just tales. They are lives breathed into words, echoes of hope, courage, and the enduring human spirit. Each story holds a lamp, small, fragile, but fiercely burning, reminding us that even in the darkest nights, light can find a way. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. For more powerful book reviews and heartfelt stories, make sure to subscribe to my channel, BookLeesh. Your one subscription inspires me to bring more amazing books to life. See you in the next video with another unforgettable story. Until then, keep reading and stay connected with BookLeesh. Thank you.